Hours earlier, the sky had been calm, the air thick with that strange stillness that comes before something breaks. She had stood in the kitchen, gently stirring a pot of soup, her movements slow, careful, protective of the life growing inside her. The house had smelled of garlic and rosemary, a scent that once meant comfort, but tonight, it felt like a memory that didn't belong anymore. She hadn't always been this quiet. Once her laughter filled rooms. Once her eyes held dreams, but somewhere along the way the silence crept in and stayed. He had been different in the beginning. Kind, gentle, the kind of man who would hold doors open, who would brush her hair behind her ear like it was something sacred. She remembered the first time. He told her he loved her, how the world had felt softer, safer, like she had finally found where she belonged. But people don't always stay who they pretend to be, and love sometimes hides teeth. If stories like this touch something deep inside you, stories about strength when everything is gone, then stay with me. Because what happened next changed everything in a way no one could have imagined. The first time his voice rose at her, she thought it was just stress. The second time, she told herself it was a bad day. By the third, she had already begun shrinking, folding parts of herself away to keep the peace. She never imagined it would end like this. "Get out!" The words had cut through the room so suddenly that she had frozen, spoon still in her hand. She turned slowly, her heart already racing, already knowing something was wrong. He stood there, eyes cold in a way she had never seen before, jaw tight, fists clenched at his sides like he was holding back something dangerous. "I said get out," he repeated, his voice lower now but somehow even more terrifying. Her throat tightened. What? What are you talking about?" He stepped closer and she instinctively stepped back, one hand moving protectively over her stomach. "I'm done," he said flatly. "I don't want you here. I don't want this." His eyes flicked briefly to her belly, and something inside her shattered so quietly that it almost felt like nothing at all. "You don't mean that," she whispered, shaking her head, her voice cracking under the weight of disbelief. "We talked about this. We said we were going to—" "I changed my mind." Just like that. Like it was nothing. Like she was nothing. Tears filled her eyes, but she forced herself to stand still, to not collapse right there in front of him. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked, her voice barely holding together. "I have nowhere. That's not my problem." The words landed heavier than anything he could have done physically. There was no anger in them, no hesitation, just emptiness, a cold, calculated detachment that made her feel like she had never really known him at all. She looked around the room, the pictures on the wall, the couch where they had spent quiet evenings, the small things she had carefully chosen to make it feel like home, and suddenly, it all felt like someone else's life. "Please," she tried one last time, her voice breaking completely now. "At least let me stay tonight. It's raining and Out!" He didn't even let her finish. And something inside her finally gave way, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. Like a door closing forever. She didn't scream, didn't beg again. She simply nodded once, as if accepting something she could no longer fight, and turned away. She didn't pack a bag, didn't take clothes, didn't even take her phone. The only thing she grabbed was what she found in her pocket as she stepped. Outside, a $1 bill, crumpled and forgotten, now the only thing she owned. And now here she was, alone, cold, pregnant, with nothing but a storm and a road that stretched endlessly into the darkness. Her feet moved before her mind could catch up, carrying her forward, step by step along the empty street. The rain soaked through her clothes, clinging to her skin, making every breath feel heavier, harder. Cars passed occasionally, their headlights slicing through the night, but no one stopped. No one noticed, or maybe no one wanted to. She didn't know how long she walked. Minutes blurred into hours. The world reduced to the sound of rain and the rhythm of her own breathing. Her body ached, her legs threatening to give out with every step. But she kept going, driven by something deeper than strength, something closer to survival. At some point, the city faded behind her. Streetlights disappeared. Buildings gave way to long stretches of empty road and shadowed trees that loomed like silent witnesses to her collapse. She should have been afraid, but she wasn't. Fear required energy, and she had none left. The only thing she felt now was a dull, constant pull inside her chest. A quiet question that wouldn't go away. Why? Her hand rested on her belly again, fingers trembling slightly as she felt the faintest movement beneath her skin. A reminder, a reason. "I'm here," she whispered, her voice barely holding together as tears mixed with the rain on her face. "I'm not going anywhere. I promise." The road curved ahead, leading into a darker stretch where the trees grew thicker, their branches twisting overhead like they were trying to block out the sky itself. And that's when she saw it. At first, She thought it was just her mind playing tricks on her, a shape in the distance, half hidden between the trees, barely visible through the rain. But as she stepped closer, her heart began to beat just a little faster. It wasn't a shadow. It was a cabin, old, silent, almost forgotten. It stood just off the road, partially hidden by overgrown bushes and tall, unkempt grass. Its wooden walls darkened by time and weather. The windows were black, lifeless, and the door hung slightly crooked, as if it hadn't been opened in years. Anyone else might have turned away, might have seen danger, but all she saw was shelter. Her steps slowed as she approached, something in her chest tightening, not from fear, but from a strange, unexplainable feeling that settled deep inside her, like the place was waiting, watching. She stopped just a few feet from the door, her breath uneven, her body exhausted beyond measure. This could work, she whispered to herself, though her voice carried uncertainty, hesitation, just for tonight, just until morning. But as she reached out, her fingers hovering inches from the worn wooden surface, something made her pause. There was a sound, faint, so faint she almost missed it, coming from inside. Her heart skipped. The rain seemed to fade for a moment, the world narrowing down to that single, quiet noise beyond the door. She held her breath, listened, and there it was again. Not the wind, not the creak of old wood, something else. Something alive. Her hand slowly curled into a fist, hovering in midair. As her mind raced with questions she didn't have the strength to answer. Was someone inside? Or something? And why did it feel like the cabin already knew she was there? Her heart pounded louder now, each beat echoing in her ears as she stood frozen between desperation and instinct. Because deep down, beneath the exhaustion and the fear and the cold, she felt it. Something wasn't right. And yet, she had nowhere else to go. Her fingers trembled as they finally touched the door. And just as she began to push it open, the sound inside stopped, completely, like it had never been there at all. And in that heavy, suffocating silence, a voice, low and unfamiliar, whispered from the darkness behind the door. "You shouldn't be here." Her hand froze against the damp wood, fingers pressed flat as if the door itself had suddenly turned alive beneath her skin. The rain continued to fall behind her, steady and relentless, but in that moment, it felt like the entire world had gone silent, like everything was waiting to see what she would do next. Her breath caught in her throat. "You shouldn't be here." The voice hadn't been loud. It hadn't needed to be. It carried something far heavier than volume, something controlled, measured, almost warning her, not threatening her. And that made it even more unsettling. For a long second, she didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even dare to breathe too deeply. Then slowly, with a trembling voice that barely held together, she whispered, I'm sorry. I didn't know anyone was here." The silence stretched again. Long, uncomfortable, heavy. She swallowed hard, her body swaying slightly from exhaustion as her hand slipped from the door. "I just needed somewhere to stay for the night. I won't cause any trouble, I promise. Her voice cracked, breaking completely now. "I don't have anywhere else to go." Nothing. No response. Only the rain, and the sound of her own fragile breathing. For a moment she wondered if she had imagined it, if the voice had been nothing more than her fear, twisting the silence into something real. But then, a faint sound, movement. The door creaked, slowly opening inward on its own, as if someone inside had made a decision. The darkness within the cabin swallowed what little light the storm offered, revealing almost nothing. Just shadows layered on shadows, thick and unreadable. Her heart pounded violently now. Every instinct told her to turn around, to walk away, to keep moving until she found somewhere safer, somewhere normal. But her body didn't move, because safety wasn't something she had anymore, and normal had already been taken from her. "Come in," the voice said again, quieter this time. Not welcoming, not hostile, just certain. She hesitated, then stepped inside. The moment she crossed the threshold, the air changed. It was warmer than outside, but not comforting. It carried the faint scent of wood, dust, and something metallic she couldn't quite place. The door closed behind her with a soft thud. Her heart jumped. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice small in the darkness. A dim light flickered somewhere deeper inside, revealing the outline of a single room, simple, worn, but not abandoned like she had thought. A table, a chair, a small stove in the corner, and then him. He stood partially in shadow, tall still, his face not fully visible yet. But his presence filled the room in a way that made it impossible to look anywhere else. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then his voice came again, low and controlled. "You shouldn't be out here alone." She nodded instinctively, even though he could barely see her. "I didn't have a choice." Another pause. He stepped slightly forward, and the light finally caught part of his face. Strong features, tired eyes. Eyes that didn't look surprised to see her. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Not curious. Not confused. Not even concerned. Just aware. Like he had expected someone, or something. "You're pregnant," he said, not as a question. Her hand instinctively moved to her belly again. "Yes." He studied her for a moment longer, his gaze sharp but not cruel. Then he turned slightly, gesturing toward a chair. "Sit." It wasn't a request. She hesitated for only a second before her legs gave in. Her body sinking into the chair as exhaustion finally caught up with her. Her hands trembled as she rubbed them together, trying to bring back warmth. He moved quietly around the room, placing a small kettle on the stove. "You're soaked," he said. "You'll get sick." "I've been worse," she replied softly, though her voice didn't carry much conviction. Another silence, but this one felt different, less threatening, more watchful. After a moment, he spoke again. "Why were you walking out here?" She looked down at her hands, at the faint dirt and rainwater clinging to her skin, and for a second she considered lying. But something about him made that feel useless. "I was kicked out," she said quietly. "By who?" She swallowed. "Someone I trusted." He didn't respond immediately, didn't offer sympathy, didn't react at all, and strangely, that hurt less than pity would have. "You have family?" he asked. She shook her head slowly. "No." "Friends?" Another pause. "No." The kettle began to hum softly on the stove, and for the first time since she entered, his posture shifted, just slightly. A tension she hadn't noticed before eased, not completely but enough to feel, as if her answers confirmed something, or removed a concern. He poured hot water into a chipped mug and placed it in front of her. "Drink." She wrapped her hands around it, the warmth spreading through her fingers, grounding her just enough to keep from falling apart. "Thank you," she whispered. He didn't respond. Instead, he sat across from her, his eyes never leaving her face. Watching, measuring, trying to understand something she couldn't see. Minutes passed. The storm outside continued, distant now, almost irrelevant. And then, he asked something that made her chest tighten. "How far along are you?" She hesitated. 8 months. His jaw tightened slightly. Just for a second, but she noticed. "And the father?" he asked. Her grip on the mug tightened. "He's gone." The words felt heavier than they should have, because they weren't entirely true, but they were close enough. He leaned back slightly, his expression unreadable again. And then, for the first time, his voice changed. Not softer, but deeper, more personal. "You shouldn't trust places like this," he said slowly. "Or people like me." She looked up at him, confusion flickering through her exhaustion. "Then why did you let me in?" That question hung in the air between them, heavy, unavoidable. For a moment, it seemed like he wouldn't answer, but then he did. "Because," he said quietly, "someone once did the same for me." Her breath caught slightly, something in his tone, something hidden beneath the surface. Told her there was more to that story, much more. But before she could ask, a sharp sound cut through the cabin. Loud, sudden, coming from outside. Both of them froze. Her heart jumped into her throat. "What was that?" she whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, his entire body went still. Alert in a way that felt immediate, instinctive. Like this wasn't new to him. Slowly, he stood up, his movements controlled, careful. "Stay here," he said quietly. But she could hear it now, too. Footsteps, more than one, crunching against the wet ground outside. Her pulse raced. Are those people?" she asked, fear creeping into her voice. His expression darkened. "Not the kind you want to meet out here." Her breath hitched. "What do you mean?" But he didn't answer. He moved toward the door, his jaw tight, eyes sharp, every movement deliberate. And just before he reached it, a beam of light sliced through one of the cabin's windows. Flashlight. Then another. Voices. Low, rough, getting closer. "Check the cabin," one of them said from outside. I saw movement. Her entire body went cold. She looked at him, panic rising in her chest. "Who are they?" He stopped at the door. And for the first time since she met him, something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Not fear, not hesitation, something else. Something that made her realize she had stepped into a world far more complicated than she understood. "They're looking for me," he said quietly. Her breath stopped. What did you do?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced back at her trembling hands, her swollen belly, her fragile state. And then, in a voice that carried both warning and truth, he said, "I'm the reason they don't stop." The footsteps outside grew louder, closer. the flashlights now pressing against the windows, searching, hunting. Her heart pounded uncontrollably as she whispered, "Are we in danger?" He looked at the door, then back at her, and the next words he spoke changed everything she thought she knew. "No," he said calmly. "They are." And just as a heavy knock slammed against the cabin door, everything went silent again. But this time, it wasn't the kind of silence that felt safe.